Yo, what's up, everybody? It's your boy Soto here with the Autumn Windbags, back with another one. All right, so today we're going to talk about Kolton Miller and the ongoing saga and potentially issues going on with him heading into the season. Give a realistic assessment of who he is as a player, who he is as opposed to who's available in the league, and what would the team look like with him and without him. We're going to get to all that. But before we do, want to make sure everyone please to like, comment, and subscribe. It's an easy way to support. It's free. Just do it. You're watching it, just do it. All right, it's not going to cost you anything. Okay. So Kolton Miller took a hard stance, man. He took a hard stance early in the offseason. He wants a new deal. He's heading into the last year of his deal, and he wants a new deal. And he was saying that he wasn't going to show up to. He didn't show up to any of the pre stuff or anything like that, but he did show up to minicamp, and that was after he had a talk with Pete Carroll. And I talked about this a little bit before in a Pete Carroll video on my other channel, but this is one of the things that is a big benefit when you have a seasoned veteran coach who has the respect of everyone, not only by who they are and how they talk to you, but what they've done in the league. Pete Carroll had a talk with Kolton Miller and said, "Hey, man, I can help you. Um, with your contract thing, talking to spytek, talking to people about keeping you around, but you got to be here. You got to be here. You can't. If you're not here, I can't help you." Type of thing. That's been reported. So that's another big plus, another big win about having Pete Carroll as our head coach. The cachet that he carries with the players. So right now, what I think, and I really do think this, I believe the Raiders are waiting to see the development of their young offensive linemen, especially Charles Grant. Um, I think that they have pretty high hopes for Charles Grant. He would have to make a monumental jump, like the Jordan Mailatas of the world. They don't happen very often. Okay, where you just pick up a guy and he hasn't played football or he hasn't played football that long and he ends up being a freaking stud. Those guys just don't happen very often. So when you find yourself the one that you think can be the guy, you have to give him a fair shot. Um, if and I talked about this on my other channel too. I think there's only two spots on the offensive line that are locked in. That's left tackle with Kolton Miller, and that's center with Jackson Powers Johnson. I think Kappa, Parham, Meredith, and Rogers are up for the guard, either guard spot, and I feel like DJ Glaze, Thayer Munford, and Charles Grant each have an equal opportunity for that right tackle spot. It could be very possible that we have two rookies starting on the offensive line, depending on how they do in the preseason and in training camp. What we have to take a look at here as it comes to Kolton Miller, his future with the Raiders, I believe, is directly tied to the play and the progression of Charles Grant. That's why I don't think they've signed Kolton Miller to an extension. Like if Charles Grant comes in, he shows a little promise, but he's maybe a couple of years away from being ready, then you go ahead and give Kolton Miller an extension. If Charles Grant comes in and beats out DJ Glaze, which he can do, and he beats out DJ Glaze for the right tackle spot, I think they might be kind of a wait and see how he does throughout the year, because he might be a candidate to play left tackle going forward. It's a dicey proposition, man, and these are some of the hard decisions that front offices have to make, not only with the coaching staff, but with the GMs and the scouts and everything. Because now, what you have to do is, if Your um, if you're all right, let me put it this way. You're scouting more than just these two players for the positions. Because if you're saying, okay, Charles Grant's going to be our tackle of the future, where do you put Kolton Miller in the whole realm uh, of tackles in the entire league? I think he's bordering a top 10 left tackle. Um, I remember the video clip of Antonio Pierce at the end of the 23 season, one of the games that they won towards the end of the year, giving it up for everybody, right? And you saw Kolton Miller clapping, but he was clapping while he was clapping against his pads because he couldn't lift his arm. That's how bad his shoulder was. He started last season, even with the injuries and all that stuff, and like having a terrible start. I mean, he gave up like 6 sacks in the first, or 4 sacks in the first 6 games or something like that. Even with that tough start, he still graded out to be like a borderline number 10 tackle. So that's where he is. So he had a much better second half of the season. How easily can you replace that? Because you have to tell yourself, if Charles Grant is that guy, how easy is it to replace? How many guys are there like a Kolton Miller? Not many. Not many. 6'8" guys, about 325, who can move. Hasn't had a holding penalty in 44 games. That's rough, man. That's rough. It's rough to wrap your head around replacing that guy, especially with the rookie. Now, the rookie comes in and he plays really well. You have a good dilemma because you don't really not really paying Thayer Mumford that much, right? You're paying Thayer Mumford as a 7th-round pick, which he was. You're paying DJ Glaze as a 3rd-round pick. Now, look, Thayer Mumford also played guard in college. Okay, also DJ Glaze was kind of projected to kick inside because of his perceived lack of lateral mobility. He showed that he's a little bit better playing the game than he is as testing wise. So I think that's what allowed him to play okay. He was okay. I think he was ranked number 74 in the NFL for offensive tackle. So it wasn't like he was lighting the world on fire. Was he a surprise as a 3rd-round pick? Was he a surprise? Did he do better than people thought? Yeah. I think people thought Thayer Mumford had that job locked down. Thayer Mumford gets injured. Glaze goes in and never lets the job go. But let's be honest and let's just look at DJ Glaze, who he had like 6 holding penalties last year, ranked number 74, I think, out of tackles, or 75, or somewhere in the mid 70s. That's not great. All right, that's not great. You got 2 tackles per team in 32 teams. That's 64. So you rank 74. Yeah, not great. So definitely a position that can be had by either, it could be Mumford, it could be Grant. If DJ Glaze is now seen as a better inside prospect, like a guard, he could kick inside. Thayer Mumford could kick inside. I'm telling you guys right now, the versatility this offensive line has is pretty impressive. You got a lot of guys who can play up and down the line. With only 2 spots that I can see really solidified, this offensive line can look any number of different ways. What offensive line coaches love to say is get the best 5 on the field and the best 8 dressed. Maybe sometimes even 7. But let's just say 8. The best 8 dressed and the best 5 on the field. If you say that, okay, it could look like what we thought, right? The offensive line could look like Kolton Miller, Alex Kappa, Jackson Powers Johnson, Dylan Parham, and DJ Glaze. It could look like that, and it very well might. It could look Kolton Miller, Jordan Meredith, Jackson Powers Johnson, DJ Glaze, Charles Grant. It could look like that. It could look any number of different ways, with only two of those spots being the same, which is Kolton Miller, Jackson Powers Johnson. I'm all for flexibility. I'm all for versatility. I'm all for that. But when you talk about offensive line, coaching could only go so far. In the NFL, coaching only goes so far. You could put the best coaches in the league, and you put them on those 0-16 Browns teams or 0-16 Lions teams, they're not winning anything. They may win a few games, but they just didn't have the talent. Okay. Number one, to be successful on the offensive line, you have to have talent. That's it. Talent. That's the starting point. That's like the non-negotiable. You have to have talent to be able to play on the offensive line. And I don't know that there's too many more talented players with the size, experience, durability, and just accountability that Kolton Miller have. I think he's a guy that needs to be paid, regardless of how well Charles Grant plays, because you don't get rid of a really, really good player because you have another guy that's good or really good too. You can't do that. What's wrong with having two good tackles? Look, Kolton Miller's already 30 years old. Now, some of these offensive linemen do play a little bit later in their careers, but as soon as if you pay Kolton Miller and he starts to slip 2 years down the road, then you move on from him then. You don't move on from him now. The second thing is you need to have communication, continuity. You need to have that in the coaching staff and in the offensive line itself. Rarely do you see offensive lines that are just like patched together, and they win a lot, right? I mean, some of the exceptions are a couple of those teams with the Chiefs. It just seems like whenever they get to the Super Bowl, whenever they lose the Super Bowl, it's because their offensive line is a patchwork, and it's not a surprise, or it's not any type of like supernatural thing to have that happen. It's normally when teams don't have their regulars on the offensive line, it's tough for them to win because it does take so much continuity and communication to play well as a unit. And I think more than any other position group in the NFL, the offensive line is more of a unit than a collection of individual pieces. Now, that being said, those individual pieces still need to be talented. They still have to have talent. That's the main thing. And that's my first thing is, don't get rid of a talented player who's still playing well. You don't want to get rid of them. I don't think get the pads on. Have a few padded practices. If Charles Grant even gives you a little like, maybe he's not too ready yet, right away. Kolton Miller, boom, right away. Sign him up. Because what you don't want to have happen is you don't want to regress in the talent of your offensive line, especially your left tackle, because you're projecting him to be better. That's just how I've always felt, guys. You don't get rid of players on the offensive line for the promise of the future player being better. Because how are they right now? Because that's going to hurt you right now. And there's very few things you can do to make up that gap if you let go of a player who was a fringe top 10 player at his position. Let's see what we got. If you guys have any comments or you want to talk about any different topics, the super chats are open. That's my spiel on the offensive line and on Kolton Miller. I believe Kolton Miller is going to get an extension. I think it's going to be a 2-year, with a third funny year, right? Like kind of a throwaway third year. At least a 2-year, though. If you're going to go that short, you're going to have to pay the man. And you're going to have to pay him big bucks. because top 10 tackles don't, fall out of trees every day. Like, they're just not anywhere to just be picked up. All right. You may have found a guy who's a really good guy that you can move forward with in the future in Charles Grant. It doesn't help you now. And that's kind of like the balancing act that Pete Carroll and John Spytek are going to have to kind of walk, because Pete Carroll wants to win right now, whereas Spytek is trying to build a winner that's going to be sustainable. I don't know that you can do that by letting go of Kolton Miller. So my vote is sign Kolton Miller 2, maybe with a funny third year. If he ends up playing really well still, I don't see a reason why you wouldn't let him play out that contract. If he's starting to show some age in a year, maybe you cut him loose after the second year and save yourself the money of the third contract, and then you can flip. If you have a guy like a Charles Grant, for example, or even if it's GJ Glazer, whoever, flip him over to the left side and you just go from there. But I think it's very hasty. I've heard a lot of things. Kolton Miller's washed up. Kolton Miller's old. He's injury prone. He's none of that stuff. He's not washed up. He's not injury prone. He's gotten injured. He got an injury in his shoulder and he missed some time and got surgery and came back. But when he was healthy, he was good. After the bye week, he was one of the best in the league. The thing is, we have to just be very careful, because a lot of times people overvalue rookies because of the promise, right? And that's why we like the underdogs. We like underdogs because they remind us of us chasing our dreams. And we sometimes are a little bit harder on the people who have already made it, because sometimes they remind us of the dreams that we gave up on ourselves. So don't be so quick to kind of shoo Kolton Miller out the door because he's been our quarterback he's been our left tackle for so long. He's still a very good left tackle and a guy that I think we need to keep around. Don't anoint Charles Grant as the left tackle of the future before he's even played a game, just because he was a monster in the FCS level. Now, it could transfer. It could end up being that way. But what's wrong with having two really good offensive tackles, especially when one of them is making third-round money? I think it's a recipe for success to have the most talent you can. And I think this group of Carroll and Spytek and team are going to do exactly that. All right, guys. We're looking to, well, that's it for me today. I don't see any super chats, so we're good to go here. All right, guys. That's it for me. Thank you very much. Go ahead and comment on the comment section. What do you think about these quick little lives? I'm trying to just give you guys extra content, just things that are popping into my mind that I think you guys are wanting to listen and hear about. So just like, comment, and subscribe. It's easy way to support. It's free. We also have subscriptions too if you want to. It's like $3, dude. It's super cheap. We could do that too, guys. Other than that, yeah, just tell everybody, man, we're doing our best here to create content for you guys. I would just really appreciate it if you guys were to spread the word to the rest of Raider Nation. And yeah, man, that's my time for today. Until next time, everybody. Peace.